Glad to be here. Good to see you, Sashei. Go ahead and why don't you introduce us or introduce people to who you are for those who might not know Sashei or have not heard the name before. They may hear the name soon. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, man. So my name's Sashei. I am a hip hop artist from Texas, but based out in LA. And I just released a new album called "You Left Without Paying" this summer. And yeah, been 2 years, 2 year process. And I'm finally glad that it's out. Yeah, meditating on something like that for a while, but then actually releasing the final kind of effort like into the world is like it's always a good feeling. But yeah.
Of course, man. And congratulations on, of course, that album, that project release, for being able to get that out there. Now, when for people who stumble across artists on their streaming platforms, on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it may be, they'll come across this project and they probably don't see any that many other albums or singles connected to your name so far. I mean, is this your very first, I guess, album project that you have released or dropped? I'm sure that you have a lot more to showcase coming up as well.
So funny enough, this is probably my fourth like full project. It's just the fact that like I guess this is the one that I've had the most confidence on. Um, I think my first project came out when I was like 20 years old, so about like 7 years ago. Um, and it was just like that, and then sample clearance and stuff like that. Even though I don't do that a lot on this because it's a couple of samples here and there, but but I'm just like, hey, if someone wants to sit, like if someone wants to, you know, do something, I'm just like, hey, I could just put it on something else and call it a day. But I was like, I'm doing this pretty much for the music. Like, there's like, I need like a billion streams to to make turn this into a living. So it's like, okay, cool, it is what it is. But no, I've made projects in the past. It's just that you know um, things have changed over time. There are certain sounds, certain kind of ways of me approaching my music that um, that have changed over time. Where I don't like having those in kind of my portfolio is like not is just not it to a point. It's not to say that I'm not proud of them. It's just that certain things have changed where I'm just like, I kind of want this album to represent, who I am more. And then just like, yeah, just artist development, changing the name, changing your brand, changing your vision, changing your sound, has a lot to do with that as well. But yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the creative process, and I think all artists go through that where they say, "Hey, this is kind of the sound I want to be known for." Or you see development or growth with many artists throughout the years, where they evolve their sound or their style in some way. So completely get that, completely understand that. But this project was what we're talking about, right? This is the latest release. You were left without paying. So, tell us more about really what went into this project. Now, when I gave this thing a listen and was very, very impressed with this album as well. Gotta add, you did a great job with this.
Thanks.
Um, I felt like I noticed an overall theme in terms of complexities of relationships, kind of, there's storytelling and there's issues of with a significant other that clearly don't always doesn't always work out.
Mhm.
Um, Now I know when it comes to writing music, making songs, there's always a story behind it or an inspiration behind it. So tell us kind of some of the stories or inspirations that led to some of these songs that led to the theme of this album.
Yeah. So pretty much it kind of all started, it was like 2.5 years ago. And actually I was looking to make like more of an R&B pop project, even though I can't sing for my life, but I love that sound. So I wanted to incorporate that into rap and hip hop. Then I listened to a little bit too much like Alchemist, Jay Dilla, West Side Gun, Kanye, who's like a huge, of course, a huge inspiration, and just kind of the way like just that subtle like sample use and kind of like less is more. I started listening to that a lot more. And then also with my love of jazz and 40s like sound and everything, I was like, I want to combine those two. And then slowly that's where the sound incorporated went into it. Um, and then with the concept itself, honestly, it was inspiration of like own personal stuff and also just like friends and everything. Like when you know you're just sitting on the couch and your friend tells you about his love life or her love life and these stories, because I think a lot of people, even in the first song, Saint Germain Flow, I keep listing all of these issues here and there, like, oh, what's that type of love? And then it goes into these like explanations. Every single one of these is not a story about me. Like one or like several of them are, but a lot of them are from stories of a friend or a close friend or a family member. Um, and I really want like this album really turned into this is about me and my relationships to this is about just the general relationships of people. And even now, like even after releasing this album, you know, me going through something, you know, these past few months, you know, in terms of relationships and personal life and stuff like that, I even went back to that project and things that I'm discovering now in my own personal life, I was like, I haven't discovered yet when I was making the album, but then I go back and listen to the project and I'm like, wow, I'm going through something I never went through, but I wrote about years ago and released just this year. And then going back to them, just like, wow, I'm actually going through that. I'm actually going through this song. I'm actually going through song number 5. I'm actually going through song number 3 or whatever like that. So like that's where it really came from. And like I said, it was a very personal it started out as a very personal like this is my story, this is my story, this is my story, but then it started to get more general where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna just combine a bunch of love stories together. um and then the same like like believe it or not, the last track was a diss track. The last track was a diss track. um but like the last track was a diss track about a past relationship.
And the last track, that's the one titled, the same title as the album, You Left Me
Yeah,
Hanging. I mean,
yeah.
listen, when I heard that song, you're hearing it, the song goes, you think it ends, and then you're right back in it. And it felt like, to me, it felt very, the ending felt very outro of a very Kendrick-esque in terms of we cry together. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that argument, that debate that just continues to escalate and it isn't ending well.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. I got that comparison a few times, and that's when it's all about like releasing music because I recorded that. So shout out to my a friend of mine who's an actor, Rebecca Swan, who she's the girl that you hear at the end during the skit, and she did a great job. To the point where while we were recording it, because I have a studio set up in my room. While we were recording it, friends of mine thought that we were actually fighting, you know, in the room, and it was super intense. And when she left, there he was like, "Dude, are you okay?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's fine. Like it's like, yeah, it was just acting." But no, she did a phenomenal job, and yeah, it was. I think if I'm not mistaken, I made I recorded my side, my version, or like my side of the skit, probably a month, um, a few months maybe, probably a few months before Mr. Morale came out, and then of course that came out, and then that actually gave me the We Cry Together gave because the last part of the album, the last song or the skit that um that was the outro, it was just supposed to be me. So it was just supposed to be me kind of screaming into an endless void and it wasn't supposed to be anyone kind of bouncing off of me. But then when I heard We Cry Together, I thought, I was like, should I need a scene partner? Um, and she went there, she went in there and it was pretty much all improv, like 100% improv. Like I think I wrote my stuff down. And then she bounced off of it, you know, just heard in the background and just performed. Um, yeah, but yeah, that was but yeah, that last song was definitely started out as a diss track. Um, but as it again, as I continue to develop the project, because I'm so glad I did, because if anything, this album was supposed to come out late 2023, maybe. But the album that you hear now was not going to be the album that was going to come out if it came out any earlier.
Right.
So and so as it continued to develop, yeah, it started turning from a diss track to just a general track of things. And then also it's all about, it all comes down to feeling and emotion too. um I don't think a lot of people realize projects like these, or a lot of projects that carry a lot of emotion, it's very hard to channel that emotion for a long period of time. So I was in
Yeah.
this thing of breakups, relationships, things left unsaid. That's what You Left Without Paying is about. It's just, that's what it's called. It's like you left without paying. It's kind of like getting up and not paying for the check, you know, when you're at dinner. It's leaving
Yeah.
things unsaid. It's not having closure in relationships or life in general, which a lot of people have, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
Some things aren't meant to be fixed. Some things aren't meant to be closed. But everyone deserves closure. But that doesn't mean you're gonna get it. And then
Right.
that's what the project means. But yeah, carrying all those things for 2.5 years, things change.
Yeah.
I could be heartbroken developing the album, but then a year and a half later, I could be engaged or like even just single, but then enjoying single life. But at the
Right.
same time, you still have to go back and channel those feelings until the end, until it's out. And also, even after I released it, there's something in the back of your head that says like, I hope I never have to feel this again, or like I hope this justifies my feelings for the rest of life. But
Right.
it doesn't, especially even like release the album, personal things happen, relationships happen, things happen even after that to myself or either some people. um and you're just like, nah, these are feelings that you just have to live with and develop and stuff like that. So no, definitely this album was even more important after the fact that it came out, just
Right.
because it was even more relevant afterwards.
It's part of life, right?
It's
So
part of
it's
life, yeah.
when you're going through those things, when you're going through those stories, whether it's you or your friends, it's exhausting, it's emotionally taxing. Obviously that's the theme, you're creating that story, so you want to go ahead and be able to provide that story. But as you mentioned, the sound, what you're going for, that evolves, that continues to grow. And then, I mean, hey, that's artistry, right? You
Yeah,
live life experiences and then you write about it and you give your audience something that they can relate to. These are all relatable stories, relatable situations that many people go through. And I mean, because of that, right? I mean, would you say that with all the storytelling, with all the emotions involved, that being able to put out music like this is therapeutic? It's a form of therapy as well.
absolutely. I don't think I could have gotten past some of these emotions or some of these stories or some of these people. Some people that I talk about in the project that I'm still friends with to this day. Some people not so much, but at the same time, yeah, you know, definitely, you know, is definitely therapeutic, and it definitely releases, some demons inside of you, because you're working on these projects and you're choosing, the beat,
Yeah.
samples, you're writing it and stuff like that. So all of that channels into something else. And also I am a proponent of someone who, it's better for me, it's better to work on, I feel it's better to work on things that have a lot of feeling. It's better to work on them down the line than to work on them at that exact moment, because you have a lot of inspiration. But the thing is, there's ideas coming from you in all different directions. So you really have to channel that. And also, like I say, it comes with discipline, and it comes with a sort of meditation, to the point where, you wake up one morning, you're writing the hell out of a song, you
Right.
have those feelings, you have those things. But the thing is, you're not going to make that beat, and you're not going to do this and do that in the next hour or two, maybe because you have a busy day at work, or something else came up. So you're going to have to channel those feelings and carry that into, whenever you record. Like, so example for me, I can write any time of the day, but I don't record probably until like a Friday night or a Saturday night.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so it's like if I'm writing something that's very inspiring on a Wednesday, I'm probably not gonna record it until like next Saturday. So like a week and a half later. But I do like that because it causes you to concentrate more, to discipline yourself more on, instead of saying just a bunch writing, you're writing a bunch of reckless words, but then you put those words into a song.
Right.
Um, and you want to make it catchy and you want to make it this and that. And you want people to bond with it in a way, because I feel like definitely my writing in this project is the best writing I've ever done. And from the hooks to catchy lines here and there that people realize. um I feel like that yeah, it just that's discipline. That's nowhere in the just full on emotion. But yeah, no, it definitely takes like balances me out. I'm even doing that now because I'm working on more music, for more bonus tracks for the project, because I feel like I have like one or two more things to say,
Right. More stories to tell.
more stories to tell.
And I mean, tell me also just, when it came to this album, this project, I mean, once you had the final project, once it finally came out, I mean, how rewarding was this process just to see that all finally come into fruition and have it out there on streaming platforms for people to enjoy, to listen to?
It was very rewarding considering the fact that I almost canceled it. And this is just daily person stuff, but like I almost canceled it because like while I was working on the album, I lost two jobs in like 1 month. And like I lost a job, got another job, lost another one, but it was blessing in disguise because I was hired. I have a great job now, but at the same time, I pushed it back a little bit. But then also when I didn't have a job, I really locked in because I didn't have a lot of money, you know, trying to pay for rent, all those things. And I was like,
In LA,
in
for
LA,
which it ain't cheap
absolutely,
out here. It
it ain't
ain't.
cheap. No, not at all. And I thought about it, and like I produce my own music. I record my own music, but the thing is, I don't. Back then I wasn't an engineer. I didn't engineer my music, and I would pay someone to do it. This time around, I couldn't afford it. So when I wasn't working, I had like 5 to 7 hour sessions a day trying to learn how to engineer. To within like 4 days, I mixed and mastered the whole album, and that was a huge achievement for me because for years I was always intimidated by mixing and mastering. And this is the time where I was like, dude, you have to, or like either pay hundreds of dollars to do it, to get someone to do it, which is not a problem. Well, which is not a problem in the sense of just getting it done, but that's a lot of money, or just doing it for free. Because I'm not getting any, like, all the money I spent, the money and the investment, even sometimes even the emotional investment, because a lot of people, your friends and family, even though I think everyone has to come to reality when you try to have success in this world. Your
Yeah.
friends and family are probably going to be the first people not to doubt you, but they're not really there. But again, for me, that's okay. It's like they look at me in a different light, and not a bad one, but they just look at me in the light of who I am, and who they know me as. So if the support doesn't go that way, it doesn't. But of course, you always love that type of support from people that are close to you. But at the same time, yeah, it's just that yeah, all the investment that I brought into the project, I'm not getting any of that back. It's just getting music and putting it out. Um, and so like with that, yeah, it's just I'm really proud of the final product. And like I said, 2.5 years, I released a single here and there, and the way I do it is not the best way in this age, because you want to put out music, you want to keep putting out music, but I just love putting projects together and putting albums together. But at the same time, now that I've worked on this, now that I know how to mix it, like I've learned things, I want to put out music more consistently. But yes, I'm super proud of what this, like pretty much nobody can tell me nothing about this. Like no one can tell me what I can and can't do um with my artistry. Like I could be insecure. I'm insecure about many things, but being artistically great, like no one can tell me anything, because no one's doing. There's a lot of people that are doing what I'm doing, and kudos to them. But people that aren't in this circle of music or creativity and stuff, you're not doing what I'm doing, and that's totally fine. Like, I'm not saying like I'm the shit and you're not. No, not even close. Um, but I'm saying that people that are going to question it is like, no, like you can't, like you nah, like a fish can't critique a lion on like how he roars. So
Right,
and
right, right.
that goes for anyone. That goes for anyone who has a passion, anyone who loves what they're doing. Doesn't even have to be art. It's like no one can tell you something, especially if they haven't experienced it.
Right.
And they are going to tell you it's a human instinct, like it's a human thing. But at the same time, you have to be confident in yourself. And if you're not confident in some cases, you're not. That's totally fine. Like it works. Like sometimes you're confident, sometimes you're not. But it's
Right.
just you have to find that perfect balance.
Right. Some people find success even in that vulnerable stage. You just really never really know, but it's a love for the music, for the artistry. There's a passion for it. So no, that's awesome to hear, and amazing to hear that you were able to self-teach yourself, basically engineering and mixing and matching certain sounds and styles of things you were looking for. At what point in time in your life did you realize this is something that you wanted to pursue in terms of making music? Writing, rapping, singing, whatever it is, at what point in time did you say this is something I want to try to get into, just take a shot at?
It was pretty much when I was in junior high and everyone was just doing it to do it. Um, and I made one song and I was really bad at it. And what was it? And then in college, I kind of asked myself, do I still want to do it? And it was just I had a straight passion for just making music and trying to put something else out there because like I love writing. Like I went to college for film and television. I love writing scripts, but I also love photography. I'm into fashion. So pretty much for me, it's just if it's artistic, I'm going to pursue it. I don't have to succeed in it, but I'm going to pursue it here and there. Because like this music thing, it has an end game. Like I have a list of albums and music that I want to make, so it has an end game. But at the end of the day, like yes, I would love. I do see myself like on stage, like performing and having fans and stuff like that. But at the same time, um, yeah, at the same time, I kind of just want to make music and see where it goes. But yeah, I love pursuing it. And then also it's just like yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. Like you're putting your feelings out there, you're putting your personality out there, you're putting a different type of personality out there because you have to put your confidence, your ego, your vulnerability out there for people to hear. Um, and right now, I think if anything, the feedback that I'm getting are mostly from like friends and family, but there are people that I've seen like some of my songs have gotten like thousands and thousands of listens, which
Yeah.
like in the zeitgeist is not like anywhere close to what the higher artists are getting. But I do wonder, okay, that guy that from England like is like two listens from England. I'm like, okay, I wonder what they thought of the project.
Right.
Um, but no, yeah, right now it's kind of just the pursuits of creativity and kind of whatever comes out of that.
That's awesome, man. And earlier you mentioned we briefly touched on it, musical influences, right? And we kind of brought up at one point in time being in your Kanye bag. And I want to also just ask you in terms of this project, but your musical style, what you love. I mean, what are some of the biggest musical influences that you've had in terms of artistry and artist, current and past?
If anything, like in general, it's been Kanye just because of his breakdown of his samples and his production. He's the one that introduced me to music in a way where like nothing else has. Like Dark Twisted Fantasy, they talked about, you know, getting an orchestra together and doing this and doing that and the certain samples he was using. Um, it was just like, okay, I need to look at more than just like this and that. Like I need to start looking at um, like orchestral music, jazz, things like that, and see where I can sample. Same thing with the conductor and everyone that works with West Side Gun. But specifically for this project, but like still in general, it's like from Kanye, Childish Gambino, just kind of his different roads of how he exploits his music. And then just Kendrick and Tyler the Creator. Tyler with the fact that he's not the best singer, but on Igor, like he brought that out, and it was just like no one accepted his collaborations because he said, he sent songs out to this person and that person and that person, but they said no or never answered him. So he's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sing it myself. And I think that type of confidence is something you absolutely need, and because um no one knows like no one knows kind of my next moves and everything, and that's cool, because I'm not like there's so much sound that I want to explore and so many things that I want to do, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take some different type of investment. I am the type of person who's kind of like an actor, where he's like they're just like, you know uh if this is the sound and if this is the way for this project, I'm going to invest myself into a personality, release that, and then there's something like if I want to do something dance, I'm going to invest myself into learning about dance and the sound of dance and electronic music and stuff like that in house, and then go into that. So it's like there's definitely different personalities, but specifically, definitely for You Left Without Paying, I thought about like this whole version of this album was um like I'm on the penthouse suite with the suit and tie. There's 40 people around me. They're all dressed up, and this is like the 40s or the 50s or the 60s. That's the sound that I wanted out of this. It was that fancy, sophisticated sound, but with this toxic concept. And I think that's what you hear it in, because I mean, one of my favorite songs on there, and it always switches, but like it's either Take Your Time or Sympathy for Red Bottoms. And Sympathy for Red Bottoms, I hired a pianist, a violinist, and a guitar player. So like all this, like the strings, the chords, the keys that you hear in Sympathy for Red Bottoms, that's all original. Like that's all original. The only thing that's not original out of that is the choir. Everything else for that 6 minute song, that took about a year and a half. Well, I had the idea for about 3 years, but it took about a year and a half to make. All of that is original, and I'm super proud of that, and surprised that I could actually mix. I was actually able to mix and master those chords with a little bit of help as well. But yeah, it's either that one or Take Your Time, which I think Take Your Time, I'm more in love with the concept, or the topic of it, which is just like this guy is paranoid about his girlfriend who's taking too long to get downstairs for their
Yeah.
date, and he's just it's super toxic. It's a super toxic
Yeah.
song, and you just find out at the very end that like he was just fantasizing all of this stuff. Like none of it was real. None of
Yeah.
like his girlfriend cheating on him, this and that. And like he's just and like it's like him kicking in the door and like forcing her downstairs. Like none of that was real, but he's just waiting a little too long in his car for his
Right.
girlfriend to come down. But yeah, those two are my favorite. And then also it's just the reception that I'm getting from people who say who would say my least favorite song is their favorite song. Like they would tell me like Hoes in LA is is one of my least favorite songs. It's not a bad song, it's just one of my least favorite. But someone was like, that's my favorite song on the project. And I'm like, that's surprising because I did not like that one that much. I just or like Friends or Lovers. Someone's like, I love that song. And I'm like, that's my least favorite. um, but that just shows how much these things are touching
Definitely.
different experiences and people just touching up on the song and how it feels in their life. So that's what it's pretty much about with the sound and the project, and you know and yeah.
And I'm glad you bring that up because I was going to ask and touch on your favorite tracks from the album. And what's funny is that sound, original sound, authentic sound, bringing those instruments, those do matter.
Yeah.
Because funny enough, the two standout tracks, my two favorite tracks personally from your album, are the same of your two favorite tracks, Take Your Time and Sympathy for Red Bottoms.
Mhm.
Those were the standouts to me in terms of production, lyricism, creativity. So I think that's awesome that you point that out. And we talk about favorite songs, right? Any
Mhm.
favorite bars, any favorite lines that you wrote and you're like, man, this is good. This is people are gonna like this.
um I think my personal favorite is actually on my least favorite song. It's Friends or Lovers. Um, but it's like you didn't know how hard I fell. Bangs cover her blue eyes, Zoe Deschanel. Um, it's like she said she got a man, but she wished me well. He don't treat her bad. All her bags is Deschanel. I really like that one because it's a shout out to 500 Days of Summer. And then the actor Zoe Deschanel, who's one of my favorite actors, and I love New Girl. And then it's just all her, it's like he don't treat her bad. All her bags is Deschanel. It's like all her bags is Chanel, and I really like that one. But is that one um sympathy for Red Bottoms? I love that the very end. He's like I wrote this. He's like I wrote this about a thousand times, about a thousand truths and a thousand lies, a thousand tweets and a thousand rhymes, but to this day I still can't get this out of my mind. um it's kind of like that's the very truth of like, you know, going through things and thinking about things and feelings and emotions, and he's like, oh, I'm past it, or or I succeeded past it, or I destroyed that, or this.
Right.
And it's just like, no, it just keeps coming back. But yeah, anything, pretty much anything out of, even the hook out of Sympathy for Red Bottoms, is just, you know, what is it, he's like, I know you always keep a clean, uh you know, yeah, yeah, he's like, I know you're feeling for the world tonight, but too much of a good thing can just ruin your life. And then, you know, you say we always got to keep a clean palate, but I know deep down you like a bad taste. It's pretty much
Yeah.
saying, it's pretty much saying like your significant other, or the woman that you like, or the person that you're having issues with. It's kind of like, you know, you're saying that we should be mature in this. You're saying we should be honest and stuff, but you love the chaos. You love the toxicity.
Yeah.
Um, that's what Sympathy for Red Bottoms is. It's, you know, I mean, if anyone knows Red Bottoms, you know, it's just a luxury heel,
Right.
but also it's kind of gives off like a devilish feel, like being kind of tempted,
Yeah.
um, and you're having, and it's just like you're having sympathy. You yourself are having sympathy towards this toxic person or toxic relationship. It's like, do you even want to be not a part of it? You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of like if you're in a situationship,
Ugh.
and yeah,
Hate that.
yeah,
Hate that word. It gives them a nastier reaction because
yes.
people could relate. And
Yes, and it's like
yeah.
it gives you like a like if you're in that situationship and your best bet is, hey man, you need to just cut this off, just cut that person off.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah, but maybe there's an end game to this, maybe there's this, maybe there's
Yeah.
that. And it's like cutting off, like not being part of a situationship is probably the healthiest thing you can do. But for some reason,
Right.
you are falling into it, and it's not because you yourself are toxic or like chaos. There's just something there, like you like being wanted, you like, you know, you like having this body next to you that likes you and wants you in a way. But it's kind of like they don't love you for certain things, maybe because they don't love themselves, they don't respect themselves,
Right.
or they're just using you as just a distraction, which is just not fair in and of itself. um so I think that's the one thing too. It's just like in this album, it's just like you wanting to be wanted, but that other person, it just has a different feel. They might say they like you
Yeah.
a lot. They might say this or that, this, that, or the other thing, but at the same time, it takes two to tango.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've learned now that like it's an audition. It's like, especially like if we're dating or in a relationship or something like that, like you need to show me as much as I show you how much, you know, I care or love or adore you or respect you, or, you know, this is not just going to work out. It's just like, or things are just going to be left unsaid, or just, you know, closure that's never going to come. But yeah.
Right. And no, I mean, even I laugh. There's also those lines of like that are catchy or kind of comical that
Yes.
also gets your attention, right? You mentioned that whole thing with Sympathy Red Bottoms. I remember there was a line that stuck out in terms of almost viewing and looking at all women the same due to your relationships that you're in. So basically there was a line that kind of went like, I think it basically kind of said something like Mary Jane, Lois Lane,
Oh,
Mary Magdalene,
Kim
Kim
Kardashian.
Kardashian. I love how that was said and structured, and also just gives you the perspective of these different types of women, but how they're all being viewed at the same viewpoint
Yeah.
just because that's what this whole thing is doing. Oh, and then on top of the influences we mentioned earlier, Kanye and all kind of stuff. And I want to point out one of these tracks, you sounded a lot like Kanye. Specifically, at least I thought so. Specifically, Get At Me sounded very Kanye influenced, I think, in terms of your voice and your cadence, and kind of also just the style and production. And I don't know, am I wrong to think that, or were you mirroring, or were you kind of like going for that a little bit?
Man, that's so funny because if anything, Kanye I could see. Um, if anything, yeah, Kendrick. Um, I was really kind of, I guess you could say I was channeling Kendrick in that one a little bit. Um, and it was very like yeah, sound wise, I think I could be anything like just it was kind of just different sounds from everywhere. I do say um I give myself I do my best to give my own unique kind of delivery when I rap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Of course with inspiration and everything, I think when it comes to recording and your voice and everything, at first you have to be confident um, about about what you say and how you say it. But I always say, or I always pretty much tell myself to, if I'm looking for any type of inspiration, to go after people that are unique, but also kind of talk like me. So like Kendrick does not talk like me at all. We don't have the same cadence in our dialogue, in our natural like dialect and stuff like that. But the way his expression and his voice changes and stuff, I tr- um I tried to look at that and say, okay, what type of voice change, like what type of, how can I utilize my voice? But if anything, I really, yeah. So Kanye, like Childish Gambino, and Drake, just because their tone of voice, I
Yeah.
feel is somewhat similar to mine in a way, and not in a way of just me trying to imitate them, but just yeah, but just it's the way they use slang, the way
Yeah.
they talk, stuff like that. Especially Childish Gambino, I feel like I'm just the
Love
way that
Gambino.
just the way that I talk is just the same, the same cadence as his to a point. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's just like those guys are similar. I find inspiration in pretty much everyone, but at the same time, my voice is the first thing that I need to listen to and need to adapt to and everything like that.
Right.
So yeah, no, definitely, but yeah, no, it's with the aggression for sure. Definitely Kanye's for sure in that, in that one, in Get At Me, and Get At Me is
Yeah.
a very aggressive song, but with like a little bit of flavor because I really love I really love the guitar sample that I used in the background. Like
Yeah.
it was like the inspiration was like Hispanic, kind of like the like Hispanic dance culture, like salsa, things like that. When it comes to like when it came to that guitar, but then also the vocals in the background are actually vocals, like isolated vocals from a collection of like Mexican artists, of like
Right.
Mexican like three Mexican female singers who just are like just beautiful, like beautiful singers. And I
Yeah.
just like looked at it and I was just like, I just love how that sounds. But just to kind of just to put more just to put more sound in there, because like I said, it was just the primary inspiration was jazz and oldie stuff. But Get At Me, I was just like, can I like turn it around and do like an aggressive hip hop with a little bit of like
Right.
with a little bit of jazzy but like Latin inspiration behind it too. But yeah.
Yeah. And that's the next thing I wanted to also flip and get into, which was the sound and the style of with influences that you brought up earlier, specifically with samples, because you mentioned there's that jazz and the old school soul feel. Listen, I'm someone, for example, that grew up in a household with parents that played ton of oldies, right? You
Mhm.
had your Motown, you had your classic R&B and soul. Before neo soul existed, before hip hop existed, that was the music. And so I noticed, when listening throughout the album, some of those influences, some of those songs, you're like, yeah, this sounds familiar. I remember hearing this growing up. I remember what this was. And then you also had a little bit of, clips for like intros and outros, or like, for example, there was some samples of like using the talk show clip of Rodney Dangerfield with Johnny Carson. Right?
Yes.
And
Wow, wow, somebody actually noticed that. Yeah.
course. Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to a good amount of music. And then
No,
there was a few
definitely.
other samples that I had written down, and I can't remember the names of the artist. But I think there was one coming towards the end of with Sympathy with Red for Red Bottoms, or maybe right before that track, of just yeah, like, hey, I remember this song. I know where this is from. So I mean, yeah, just what were your thoughts, your thought process on aiming for that style and using
Mhm.
those specific samples that you used?
Um, if anything, just to get that old feel and fuse that with hip hop and rap, because a lot of it, there's probably one or two songs that are very soulful that have soul samples. Everything else is pretty much songs that are like 70 years old. Um, and if I was going to make an album with that sound, I was going to get the samples and the ideas from that age, like from that era. And yeah, and like I said, it was just I was listening to a lot of Nina Simone, Etta James, Fitzgerald, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Coltrane, you name it, I was listening to it. Just to give my Eartha Kitt, just to give myself some inspiration in that. And then the skits, one thing's for sure is aside from the interlude itself, because I thought that interlude was very beautiful. And I that was on TikTok. It was like a TikTok one because it was a girl telling her story about how she like how she left a date just because the guy said
Oh,
too
yes.
expensive.
Yes, yes, right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
And you mentioned TikTok. I think there was also another one where someone did a play off of it was I remember seeing it last year, like someone did a meme off of the famous or not the famous a song that was a hit last year from a group called The Sacred Souls, where it's an
mhm.
old school, they're modern, but they're like their sound sounds like a 60s soul group.
Oh yeah, can I call you
And
Rose?
yeah, exactly. Can I
Mhm.
call you Rose turned into
Yeah.
something else, which I won't repeat.
Yeah. But no,
But
but
that,
I love yeah, when I heard that I said I have to sample that. I said I have to sample that remake or something like I just thought it was hilarious.
yeah,
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was real.
very.
Because there are some days you just have that attitude.
Hmm.
One day you're in love, the
She
other
gonna
day
do
you're
this
just
to
like,
me?
exactly,
Type of
exactly,
type of feel.
exactly. And so that's really what I wanted to get out of there. But no, definitely, and I think one thing's for sure. Um, my old songs and my old projects had a lot of interludes, a lot of skits and stuff like that. This time I really was like, yeah, I can't do that because no one's gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
So so putting them in here and there, making them very short, making them just ear catching, but then it's like, okay, back to the music was very important to me. That's why you hear them at the beginning or the end, or you just hear them right in the middle. You just hear them all around, like I said, except for the interlude. But like the interlude makes sense because I wanted it to set up sympathy for red bottoms. But aside from that, yes, these are important parts of the album. It's just important to make sure that they aren't the album. It's still the music.
Very.
But I'm glad that people like you and others, have caught these things here and there, and it did more to you understanding and even liking the song than kind of just being like it was like a distraction.
Right. Yeah, it's part of the storytelling, letting the music speak for itself, but having those little moments when you can catch a sample that you recognize, when you can catch a clip or something, whatever it is, those moments of comedic relief, whether it's in lyrics, whatever it is, it's always fun for, I think, many people who listen to music, many music heads who pay attention to the little details. Yeah, it's important. It's important. So in terms of creating that whole, really building that whole project together.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Sashay, I mean, hey, man, I think that's all I have in terms of questions. Once again, congratulations to you and this project that you've put out, the accomplishments you've made on this, and that you continue to do so as you continue to make more music, write, produce, engineer, rap, sing, whatever it is, being in your zone, being able to expand out of your comfort zone and push the boundaries. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, hey, that best of luck to you. Congratulations once again. I'm excited to see what Sashay has to offer in the future. And yeah, man. I mean, hey, is there anything else you want to say or add to touch to end this?
No, just thanks for having me and talking about the project. Like I said, I really like that people um are liking it, getting into it, and hopefully I can add more, ears and give it to a wider audience, as time goes on. But yeah, I just love it, and kind of, stay tuned for more. I have a lot more to tell and to show and just to express, and to bring out there and show to people. So yeah, thank you.
That's awesome, man. Well, congratulations once again. Best of luck to everything, and we'll look forward to what's next. We'll be listening,
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
of course.